one time, a friend of mine, he had an uncle that lived up in Mount Vernon, and a friend Dean West at the time. Um, he said, we're gonna go up there for the summer, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So we jumped on a bus, went up there, and his uncle and his cousin or whatever picked us up, and they took us just that ride from the bus stop through through Manhattan, through Harlem, through the Bronx to Mount Vernon was like it's like that was everything I saw to me on Beach Street. You know what I mean? So that was one of those surreal moments. And I saw a car. Dude, I can go deep with that one. But anyway, we were right there in Mount Vernon. Heavy D was there. I think Pete Rock was there. I think it was Pete Rock, or maybe it was CL Smooth. I can't remember which one of them was there. And I didn't know who they were. This is before Hev came out. I'm playing basketball with him at a court at a corner. It's a little schoolhouse on in West Fourth Street or South Columbia. I can't remember. It's like a little schoolhouse. They had a little basketball thing on the other end of the field. My friend's uncle was the janitor for the school, so we got to stay in this big schoolhouse, this old schoolhouse that had a basketball court right next to it. So I'm seeing these dudes. Like I didn't know who they were. They had these nice burner jackets, the graffiti jackets on and everything. I didn't know who they were, because they didn't come out yet. Nobody knew who they were. And we playing basketball with them and everything. And next thing you know, you see them like, wait a minute, Heavy D and the boys. Like, wait a minute, them the dudes that we play basketball with. So it was crazy, and it was just one of those times that that was great. That was one of the times, first time I heard the show. The show was the same thing up in that same place, and we walked the whole city trying to find that record by Dougie Fresh. I bought every other record and could not find the show because it wasn't out yet. Doug had just made it. They went to BLS, not BLS, I think it was BLS or Kiss at the time. I think Red Alert played it, and I caught the last part of it, like the "We Are Fresh, Chill Will Fresh." That last part I recorded on a boom box. And when we got back home, we had a big battle, breakdancing battle against the Papa Lots and two other crews in DC at it was a place in DC or in Maryland called Crystal Skate. And I was a DJ at Crystal Skate on the dance floor on Friday nights, sometimes Saturdays, and I think I did one of the other nights on the skating floor. And they had two skating floors. And the guy who taught me how to blend good, Vince, was Vince Young. He taught me how to, was it Vince? His last name wasn't Young. Can't think of his last name. First name was Vince. He taught me how to blend real good music. And that's the type of DJ I was. I was a blender, not a scratcher. I mean, I could do all of that, but blending and making stuff right was what I love doing. But I played just that part of that record. I looped it. Like we had a Casio SK1 and I looped that joint. And when my crew got, I played good records for everybody. But when we got up there, I played that record. Nobody in DC had ever heard it because nobody really in New York has heard it unless they listen to the radio station. The record wasn't out. Nobody could play it. So I played that joint. And I tell you, like, the crowd was so just in shock of what that was because that was almost the first time of hearing real go-go as hip hop. Because if you know the story behind that record, that's a Ted Riley record. Ted Riley produced that. Ted Riley is from Virginia. Is he from Virginia? I think he's from Virginia. And that that was a go-go vibe, you know. Or maybe he's not from Virginia, but anyway, but that's a whole go-go vibe. So and Doug, I know Doug now, and he told me like, dude, he was so, and that's why we respected him so much in DC because he always gave us respect. And he did, most of his songs had a go-go vibe to them. So Doug is like a big influence of mine, and it's funny how you get to meet people later, but and even Have, like when I met Have and I told him that story, he's like, dude, I don't remember you, but that's some shit, But that, Have was, my guy. And so hearing that, that's kind of how the hip hop thing kind of got started in me, Run DMC and all that other stuff. There's another radio station that was in DC, was called WHFS. I think it was out of Annapolis. They played everything. You could hear Led Zeppelin, then they play Run DMC, then they would play the Bee Gees, then they would play something totally left that I've never heard of. Kraftwerk. That was one of the times they started playing Kraftwerk on that station. So they just played everything, no matter what it was. And I listened to that station a lot. Where that's where I got a lot of new sounds and new flavor from, just by listening to that station. You could hear it, and it was just a lot of different stuff. I know I'm going on, but I can keep putting pins and stuff, and it's one story leads to another, which leads to another. It's like a Forrest Gump story and stuff, man.
Nah, man, I appreciate you taking the time to share that history, man, because you got my mind, racing. I gotta, what I'm saying, go back and do my research because you named a lot of giants, man. Dougie Fresh, come on now. Heavy D,
Yeah.
rest in peace, man.
Yes. Yes. Though I mean, those guys were. I mean, they were big, really, really big influences. I mean, Have came out and did it like nobody else, man. You know, from the Overweight Lover, it's just like you gotta love him. From that, and then I always called him Dwight. Because he would always come to the studio, Steven. And so I started calling him Dwight. And so my man Dwight, like he would just having that's the blessing of of opportunity that I think I've been given, is that I could actually sit down and talk to people, not on a superstar, oh, you're a superstar to me and everything, but I got a chance to tell like a lot of people thank you for the influence, and got to know a lot of real good people. And Hev was Dwight was one, and I'm still waiting for his call, man. I used to get those calls, man. He would just call me. I hope he go, nigga, and that was my dude. I just knew that was him calling me, and it didn't matter. I don't care what I was doing. I just pick up the phone and just sit there. I'm still waiting for that call. And those are some of the cherished moments I got to have because of hip hop.
Wow, that's amazing, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Man, I could just ask you now, when did you really, really get your first big break? When did you really get into the game and start working with artists?
Um, well, all that time was going by. After the breakdance and stuff, I just stopped DJing. Well, I'm not gonna say I stopped DJing. Um, I really start my music production side. So I started making beats because that's all I could do. I couldn't play anything, couldn't play the keyboards, nothing. So I started making beats, and once samplers came out, or we could afford the samplers, I started sampling and learning how to manipulate stuff, which made me still attract, or try to be, or I tried to attract all of the keyboard players that I knew around me. There was a guy named Miles Simmons. He plays in sorry Miles, I can't think of the band that he plays in DC. And a dude named Herb White. Sorry, Herb, can't think of the band. He plays in DC. But I always tried to attract keyboard players because they could play better than me. I couldn't play. My god brother James Davis, same thing. He played keys. I couldn't play. So he had a top 40 band and or R&B group. I would try to make beats for his group. I just tried to make beats for everybody. I just started programming R&B, pop, rock. Ended up working at a gospel record label, reprogramming terrible drummers tracks. Everybody thought it was a drummer, but no, it was me reprogramming it to sound like a real drummer. So then I put out 3 albums with this. It was Anointed Records. We did like 3 different albums where I had to recreate the drums, and nobody could. Even the drummer was like, "Yeah, man, I really sound good. The way you mixed, I'm like, that ain't you, bro." But so and I would do gospel in the daytime. And me and my boy Steve Jones, who actually ended up being Stevie Wonder's right hand man, he would come to the studio and we would just produce for anybody. And somebody had this group from New York. I can't remember where, oh, they were called the East Medina MCs. Don't ask me. Never heard from them again. They came down and we produced this track for them that I still hear in my head today. That was almost like one of the first real hip hop tracks I ever produced for a hip hop group. And that boom, there it is. You know what I mean? Like we were both me and Steve were both Hank Shockley fans. What's up, Uncle Hank? Still call him Unc to this day. Um, and the Bomb Squad. So all our style was Bomb Squad style. So just taking bits and pieces of everything from everywhere. S950 sampler, MPC. I don't even think did we have a 3000 then? We didn't even have a 3000. I had an R8 drum machine, or I didn't have R8. I forgot what I had, but anyway, we just take those things and we just made records, man. And we just made beat after beat after beat after beat. Didn't go nowhere. Most of the time we did it for free, just gave them away, just so people could have them.